should you care how you win, right? And the real champions, I think, do care how they win. The real greats in the combat sports arena, like they really care. They want to win a particular way.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight at Delbra.
Hey guys, welcome to the Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. And welcome. Today we're going to discuss my Fight to Win match recap. Plus, we are going to go over the ADCC and CJI picks that are happening this week. Before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a review if you can. Leave comments where you can. Share this show. It really, really helps me spread the show. All right, so first of all, I just want to touch on something. I was fishing with my old man in the last weekend. We went up to Gibson's, which is a place in BC known as the Sunshine Coast. I went on my buddy's boat, and it was awesome. And we caught a couple of salmon. It was really, really great. And I think it's really important to get out there and try and be in nature as much as you can. It can really help with mental health and things like that. Plus, it was great to just reconnect with my dad. And I think, we're so busy these days. I think we have a culture that sometimes puts our parents on the back burner, and it's important to reconnect with your parents. And fishing is a great way to do that for me. And BC has really beautiful scenery, lots of salmon. Oh, at least we used to have a lot more salmon. It was kind of a funny day. We went out there and we were just constantly pulling up these baby salmon, which is a good sign for the future, but we can't keep these things and it's super annoying in the meantime. So every time we'd throw out a line, you'd pull it in 5 minutes to check on it, and there'd be like a tiny little baby salmon attached to the end of it. And of course, we'd have to throw it away and it probably dies, and then, throw out a line again. And, 5 minutes later, pull up another baby salmon. So this was actually super annoying, but it is promising for the future of fishing here. And I recommend anyone, wherever you're listening to this episode, if you can get out to BC and experience some of the wild outdoors that we have here, it's really, really, I would recommend you do it because it's a fantastic place to go. I'm hoping to go in the next couple of weeks as well, so I can fish when the coho are a little bit more fat, and ideally before the season ends. Hopefully you can get back out there with the old man. Definitely recommend, checking out some fishing if you can. All right, so let's discuss Fight to Win. This was the first Fight to Win in Canada. Usually Fight to Win is just limited to the United States. And this is the first show that they've ever done in Canada. So they came here to Vancouver. And I will say, just as a side note, I was a little bit disappointed with the organization of the event. I actually know the person who organized the event. He's a friend of mine, and he actually worked his ass off to get this thing running. Now, I will say that the show promoter, Seth Daniels, I don't know if he likes to build the plane mid-flight, but there really wasn't a lot of organization on their end in terms of like, okay, when are we going to sell tickets, things like that. Like, we're literally finalizing the card and trying to sell tickets 2 days before the event, which is fucking crazy. Like, you're not really going to sell a lot of tickets if you do that. I think if it was, and I'm not bashing my friend because he made the event happen. He organized it. I know he worked very, very hard to get it done, but in terms of the actual event organization, how to distribute it to the public, what the athletes were told to tell people so that they could get tickets to the event, it was pretty poorly organized. So I'm hoping that if the show does come to Canada again, we certainly have a jiu-jitsu market here in Canada. If the show comes to Canada, I would like to see a little bit more organization on the part of the actual promoters, not my friend who is the Canadian representative for Fight to Win. His name's Mike Hansen, by the way. He also fought on the card. So Mike really worked his ass off to make sure that all the athletes were there and everyone had what they needed to compete. And the event ran great in terms of how smooth it ran once they got started, but there were certain obstacles in the way, like they couldn't bring up their gear. And like I said, it was just a little bit too delayed when it comes time to actually promoting an event like that. I think a little bit more time, a little bit more preparation on behalf of Seth Daniels and the rest of the Fight to Win crew, and it would have been much, much more successful. Also, the venue that it was at is a place that I've never been at. It's called the Maritime Labor Center, and it was like this shitty little hall. It wasn't really an ideal situation to compete in given the fact that there were no warm-up mats and, they were lacking most of their equipment. It was in a boxing ring. Who knows when this boxing ring was last cleaned? I actually got a staph infection the day after I competed there, which has since cleared up, thank God. But it was, and there were some complaints that the ring was too hard, although I didn't really find that to be much of an issue, but it was just not the most ideal circumstances in terms of a venue. And anyone who competes knows that like not having mats to lie on and roll on before, it kind of sucks, right? It's better to have, a place where you can lie down and roll and stretch and move around with a teammate. So basically everyone is going in there cold, which kind of sucks. But other than that, the event kind of went without a hitch. So let's just talk about my match real quick. I went against a guy named Corey Guittard from 10th Planet Calgary, and I was pretty disappointed in myself. I didn't get the win, but I lost on a ref's decision. And the Fight to Win rule set really doesn't favor positional advances or anything like that. Like you could pass someone's guard, take their back, they escape, and then they put you in a front headlock or a saddle and maybe chase your heel for a second, and they're probably going to get the victory. So they really don't award things like guard passes and back takes and things like that. But my match was super uneventful. I basically pulled guard. This guy's 200 pounds. He was very heavy on top. I walk around 183, 185. And I'm trying to off balance him, and we're just basically hand fighting from the split squat, from the knee shield. He really didn't come forward and that much at all. And before the match, I was thinking like, hey, how's this match going to go? And I envisioned myself getting into his legs and him trying to submit me, and there being some exchanges. I think he's also a no-gi pans champ at black belt, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's difficult to fight a fight when the person you're fighting kind of doesn't engage, and also when the fight that you were expecting to happen never really happens, right? So what I was preparing for was submissions, attacks, submission escapes, and it just didn't play out that way because it wasn't being reciprocated from the other athlete. Now, I play my own part in that too. You could argue that I should have opened up more as well. And I considered during the match, should I start just doing inversions and just throwing my legs out there so that my opponent can start to feel a little bit more comfortable at coming in? Should I let some of my frames down and perhaps let him close the distance a little bit? And I thought during the match, if I do that, then there could be a real issue if he gets chest to chest on me, given that he's bigger and stronger. So I played a pretty conservative game, and I was just basically dominating the hand fight from the knee shield and looking for my kazushi, looking for my off balances. And at the end of the day, there was about 30 seconds left. I would say, I probably could have won that match had I played a very disciplined game and just basically ran the clock out because he wasn't coming forward. But as I was going to the inside, it was almost like I was trying to play like a waiter position, and I didn't have a cross lap post in the way. And he basically just dove on a front headlock from the top. He did get to the front headlock. I turned. Now we're talking 10 seconds left. I came up into the front headlock on my knees. I dumped him. He just rolled out and bailed, and they gave him the ref's decision, right? And I had some off balances. At one point, I had inverted into his legs, and he was basically just basing out. I really didn't get access to his hips. I just had like my hands clasped around his knee line. And I think if I just killed the clock, that might have been enough to steal the ref's decision. But in the end, they gave him the ref's decision. Nothing really happened in the match. I was pretty disappointed because I hate having uneventful matches. And the match that followed immediately after my match was two buddies of mine, Lucas Wilhan, who I just lost to at Battle Mats, which I spoke about, and also Reynaldo Camacho, who I've fought Reynaldo before multiple times. He's a good friend of mine. We've trained together, and actually it was a barn burner, and it was a very, very interesting match, back and forth match. And that was the kind of match that I was expecting. There was a lot of leg entanglements. I would say positionally, Lucas absolutely dominated Reynaldo, but it got to the point where it's just my cat walking in front. This is just me spraying my cat. So sorry if you're just listening to that. I had to just spray my cat violently with the dreaded spray bottle because she keeps constantly jumping up here on the desk, and it's so fucking aggravating. So anyways, I was saying that match with Lucas and Ronaldo was like back and forth. Ronaldo was attacking the legs. Lucas engaged and was going into some leg exchanges as well. And in the end of the day, Ronaldo got the nod. And, I could see the match going either way. I know Lucas thought that he won. My coach thought that Lucas won, and I can see it either way because Lucas did have some guard passing. He had some really slick movement on top. And I think Ronaldo had a saddle at one point. And even if I could see it perfectly, he never really got a bite on the heel. But I think that in the eyes of the Fight to Win judges, that attempt, he was chasing the heel and Lucas was defending. I think that attempt scored a little bit more than it probably should have, because in my opinion, that attempt should only really score if there's a legit bite on the heel, and there just wasn't. But you could argue that, well, hey, Ronaldo's attacking and Lucas is defending. And after the match, Lucas had written, hey, on an Instagram post, something to the effect of how he was looking to counterattack. And looking back, that may not be the strongest or smartest strategy for this rule set, because you're now giving up the initiation to the other person. So if you're allowing them to attack you and then you're going into counterattacks, there's a good chance that the initial attack will be scored in favor more from the judges than the counterattack. So either way, it was a super close match. Both guys were spent at the end. And I was just really disappointed that these guys had a way better match than me. That was the hardest part for me. It wasn't the fact that I lost, but it was the fact that I really found my match to be boring and uneventful, because my opponent was playing so safely. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was playing safely as well. And neither one of us wanted to open up. And when neither one of you want to open up, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a match where, not much happens. And afterwards I thought, should I have done more to allow him to come in? And I honestly, I probably should have, but I was a little bit afraid from the size disadvantage that could really be an issue as time runs on. I also thought about it to myself, like, winning a match like that, like would I have been any more satisfied or happy if I had won that match, if I just killed the last 30 seconds? And I might be 5 to 10% happier if that happened, because the truth is I don't really like winning matches that way. Like, I like to win, but I especially in a submission only context, I envision myself going for submissions. It's a little bit different from IBJJF, where you get an advantage and you know that you're up and you just kind of hang on to that lead. In this case, it was like, okay, I want to go for something because I want to make sure that I get a sniff of a submission. And so I kind of let my guard down, went underneath, and he just dove on a headlock honestly, I watched it back and it was pretty slick how he did it. I didn't feel any heat on the headlock, but because a headlock resembles a submission and because not much happened in the match, they did give him the decision. And, there's kind of a question that you should always ask yourself when you compete. Did you play things too safely? And this is one of those times where I came away from the match thinking, yeah, I think I did play a little bit too safe, and it ended up costing me. So even though there was no real danger throughout the entire match, it was just one of those things where, my opponent was more patient than me. He was more tactical than me, and he likely stole the match in the last 10 seconds of the fight. So it's a question that I always ask myself. It's kind of philosophical for competitors. Should you care how you win, right? And the real champions, I think, do care how they win. The real greats in the combat sports arena, like, they really care. They want to win a particular way, and they're never really happy. Like Marigali and Gordon, I'm not comparing myself to them at all, because I'm not, but these guys are like upset if they don't get submissions, right? And I know people like that who compete. They always want the submission. If they win, but they don't get the submission, they're not happy with it at all. And it is philosophical, because we all want to win as competitors. I think all of us hate losing, but are we willing to have a boring fight if that means to win? And like I said, for me, I envision myself getting into some positions where I could isolate his legs, or even if he could attack my legs, like, I'll look, as long as it's eventful, as long as it's exciting. That's kind of what I was hoping for, and I just didn't get it. And if you watched the match, I'm kind of sorry, unless you want to see, two guys hand fighting from the knee shield. That's and you like that type of it was technical hand fighting, and I was trying to off balance him. But if you like that, then go ahead and watch the match. If you don't like matches where not much happens, as I think most of us do not like matches like that, don't even fucking bother watching my match. Other than that, there was some really good matches. It was a lot of fun. Our on guard jiu-jitsu, my team, we sent 10 athletes and we had 7 victories. Yeah, what can I say? On to the next one, right? The next one for me will be ADCC Vancouver, and that is in October. I'm thinking about moving up a weight class. So that is, I guess, I know the ADCC Opens are different weight classes, but I think in terms of pounds, it'd be like 183. I just don't feel like cutting down to 170. I'm too old for that shit. I like to fight at the weights that I walk around at now, even though I'm like a generous 5'8". I should definitely be cutting, but I just don't think I'm going to. Okay, and also made me wonder, like, if I don't have mats to warm up on, like, how do you like to, again, comment if you're a competitor and you've had experiences like this. You go to a tournament and there's no mats for you to warm up on. Like, what kind of warm-ups do you like to do? And it made me wonder, like, okay, you always, the old cliche where you see like an MMA guy at a jiu-jitsu tournament and he's doing like shadow boxing. It makes me wonder, like, is shadow boxing a legit warm-up? My initial thoughts on that is no, because you're not striking during, jiu-jitsu. So it's probably not a legit warm-up for jiu-jitsu. You should probably be mimicking the sport that you're about to perform in your warm-up. But that being said, man, shadow boxing is a good warm-up, and you twist your trunk twists, and you work your feet. And if the ground is too dirty or you don't want to lie on the ground, like, it's actually not a bad warm-up. So I was moving around a little bit, just I wasn't punching the air like crazy, but I was trying to move around and trying to get warm. I'm not really a big fan of just like burpees and things like that, but I did have to do some of that because there just was no place to grapple anyone. It's a hard concrete floor. And, I think it's one of the things that every competitor is going to have to go through at one point or another, is just like improvising on game day, and those unforeseen variables that come into play. Like, maybe you really are specific with how you like to warm up. You get to the venue and there's no place to warm up, or things get in the way. Maybe you're late getting to the venue and you didn't get a chance to prepare the way that you wanted. And being able to adapt to these situations and to be able to roll with the punches is a very big asset for any competitor out there. Things are not always going to go the way that you want to prepare, and this was kind of one of those situations. And so I hope that if Fight to Win comes back to Canada, that they're going to have that sort of thought out, and they're going to have the ability for the athletes to warm up, in a better way, and ideally a better venue than the one that we had here. So, like I said, I think shadow boxing is probably not a legit warm up for grappling. You should probably be doing like hand fighting and moving around, doing grappling based movements. But man, it can be a good way to get warm. That's for sure. And, I do like to shadow box. It's actually pretty fun. Okay, let's switch gears now and let's discuss ADCC and CJI, my picks for these tournaments. So this is, by the time you're listening to this episode, these tournaments are about to take place in a couple of days. By the time you hear this episode, I am traveling to Las Vegas, and I can't wait. I'm going to be cornering my student, Lincoln Costello, in the Kids Worlds. He got selected for that tournament. I'm super pumped for Lincoln, and the kid's really, really technical. He's a killer. I really recommend that you guys keep your eyes out for this kid as he comes up through the ranks, because he does some incredible things on the mats. Really high submission rate, submits a lot of people. Kid's awesome. So that's my real purpose for going to ADCC. Going to Las Vegas, but also we're going to be checking out ADCC, and I think we're going to go to day 2 of CJI as well. So if you want to watch ADCC from home, you're going to need a Flow Grappling subscription. If you're going to watch CJI, you're going to need YouTube, which everyone has. It's free on YouTube. So I'm just going to talk about ADCC first. Here are my picks. So the under 66 kilogram division, I think it's going to be Dorian Oliveras. Ever since I saw him at East Coast Trials, I was super impressed with this kid. He's a wrestler. I think he's a multiple-time All-American Texas state champion. He's also he won no-gi pans at purple. He's the CJI. I think he's the Bantam. Not CJI, the EBI Combat Jiu-Jitsu champion. Like I said, he just won East Coast Trials. This kid is, so this is my cat, again, just walking in front of the camera. God, fucking cats are such assholes sometimes. one thing too about my cat, she's super stubborn. Like I will kick her off my desk like 10 times, and she just won't stop. But she's like 15 and she's probably getting into the last couple of years of her life. So I do love her, but God damn it, get off the fucking desk. Dorian Oliveras, he's my pick to win. He is incredible to watch. His style is kind of a passing style that I've never used before, but I started really using a lot, where we're basically running around the outside of your partner and just like doing all that you can to disconnect their guard. And then when they start to connect to you, you just back out and go again. And he's basically spamming like north-south passing. So he's going to north-south, they high leg, and he hits a duck under off of the high leg. Plus his wrestling is world class. He's like I said, he's an incredible wrestler at the highest level. And if it goes to overtime, I don't think there's anyone in this division that's going to be able to out wrestle him. So he's always got that in his back pocket. And he's 17 and he looks like he's like 29. Like he's an absolute beast. He beat Ethan Creliston pretty handedly at East Coast Trials. I think this is his division, honestly. And then of course you have the reigning ADCC champion, Diogo Baby Shark Hayes. He's not even, I don't think he's going to win this year. I think it's going to be Dorian's year, but Diogo is incredibly good. We saw him win the last ADCC, so he's definitely on everyone's radar. And then, Diego Pato, I think he's probably got the best guard in the division, but who knows what he's been doing with his wrestling. I've been watching some videos on Flow, and I think he's working more on counter wrestling. How is he going to apply submissions and deal with his opponent off of the takedown rather than initiating takedown. So I don't know that Diego Pato has, the game, the style that suits the ADCC rule set just yet, unless he's been making crazy strides with his wrestling over the last couple months. I think he's going to have a really hard time with a guy like Dorian Oliveras. And then of course, Ethan Creliston is just unreal. We just saw him fight DeAndre Corbe and he basically smoked him. But, it's all about who can put things together best on game day. And the 66 kilogram division is still a division that hasn't really been, for lack of a better word, ravaged by athletes moving over to CJI. Like those guys are generally too small to move over to the under 80 kilogram division at CJI. So we're still seeing like the best in the world in the 66 kilogram division. And I think Dorian has the ability to win this year for sure, especially with his wrestling pedigree. All right, so the under 77 kilogram division, not really a hot take, but I think everyone's going to pick Mika to win this year. He had a very, very close match with Cade in the last year, although Cade, if you watch that match again, Cade was doing a good job of shutting Mika's attacks down pretty much from everywhere, dominating the top position, and then finished Mika with a heel hook. Mika, I can't remember what kind of position he had. He had like a crisscross ashy and he stuck his leg a little bit too deep and Cade just jumped on the heel hook and finished him. So I think we're going to see Mika win this year, considering that both Rotolo brothers have moved over to CJI. And in the 77 kilogram division, still stacked with some really incredible names, but this is where we start to see athletes move over to CJI and leave ADCC to go compete for the $1 million. Other notable characters in that division, we're going to see PJ Barch. I mean, I think he's going to podium. PJ is incredible. I fought him at Brown Belt. Absolutely smoked me. He is world class. Probably the top guy in the 10th Planet system, I would say. And very much a wrestling game. I know he trains a lot at Legion with J-Flow, Justin Flores. And he's just got incredible wrestling and just a really tremendous jiu-jitsu fighter overall. I believe he beat the reigning champion the last ADCC, which was JT Torres, and he eliminated JT. JT also in the division, although I think he's going to have a hard time with guys like Mika Galvao. Also, we have Wagner Hosha, who's a legend. He's moving back down to 77. It'll be interesting to see how he competes at 77. This guy is probably the oldest guy, if not one of the oldest. He's the oldest in the tournament. But he's a veteran and he can always, he's always tough. He's always hard to put away. So Wagner is, I think, kind of like a dark horse in this division. And Tonen's back in the 77 kilogram division after his last performance where he was eliminated first round in the 66 kilogram division at the last ADCC. Anyone who watched that knows that that's not really how Gary likes to fight. And I think we're going to see him really bring back, at least I'm hoping to see the Gary Tonin of old, high flying submissions, scrambles, wrestling, probably the most entertaining jiu-jitsu fighter of all time, arguably. And really, I love watching Gary Tonin, man. He's, your mom's favorite grappler. He's the man. Love Gary. And another favorite of mine in the 77 kilogram division is fellow Canadian Dante Leon. My student Harrison Woods, actually in Ohio, training with Dante last week. And that's the second time visiting Dante Leon, training with him. Dante, what can I say? He did just lose a match by heel hook a couple of months ago to Diego Pato at Who's Number One. But we're talking about a no-gi world champion and an absolute no-gi world champion. And this guy is not big. Dante is walking around probably at like 170, and he's probably like 5'8". Like, he's like my size, and he is an incredible jiu-jitsu fighter. He can do, he has great wrestling. He has leg locks. He has a really fantastic guard. So it'll be very interesting to see how Dante, he could be a dark horse in the 77 kilogram division as well. But I think it's going to be difficult to find anybody bet on anyone else aside from Mika Galvao this year. I think it's his time. And as much as we'd love to see that rematch with Cade, because some people think that Cade kind of got lucky in that match, I mean, I think Mika is going to be able to put it away this year. Okay, 88 kilogram division. We have, in my opinion, looking at the division, now we're seeing guys that are really starting to move over to CJI. So I think Giancarlo Bodoni, I could see him winning it again, but I think up there with him are guys like as Isaac Michel. I think he's, he did just come off a loss from Tyro Tolo. It's actually a fucking crazy, if you watch that match, man, these cats really tested me. There was a really crazy body lock counter. He had a body lock on Ty, and Ty basically hit like a hip switch. I don't know if it was a Sumigaeshi. It was like a bump sweep Sumigaeshi, and reversed Isaac and then put him in a Rotolotine, as it's being called. But I guess it could be classified as a rear head and arm or a rear katagatame. And Cade actually hit the same submission that night. So I think Isaac has a good chance also as well to podium this year. And then other notables for me are Pedro Mourinho and Jacob Couch. Now, Jacob Couch, the thing about him, he did just win East Coast Trials a couple months ago, but the thing about him is he is kind of predictable. He loves pulling guard and going to the legs. And if you know that, you'll have a better chance of shutting him down, because his game is a little bit less wrestling based and a little bit more predictable. We know what he wants. So I think opponents will have an easier time funneling the fight against him to their favored positions and away from his favorite positions. And then Pedro Mourinho, who's a front headlock specialist, he's an excellent wrestler. I think he has a really good chance to podium as well. So my pick would be Giancarlo Bodoni, but I could absolutely see Isaac and Pedro getting on the podium as well, or perhaps even winning that division. Okay, under 99 kilograms. I mean, again, not a hot take. I think Nicholas Marigali is going to win. I think most people think Nicholas is going to win. The funny thing about Nicholas, like, he's so if you saw his Instagram post a couple days ago, he was talking about how I need you guys to help me out. What submission do you think I should win the ADCC with this year? I'm gonna fight Kynan in the finals. I'm thinking about arm barring him. It'll be so easy. But can you guys help me out? What submission do you want me to see me do for the semifinals? Like, this guy's confidence is so great. And you wonder, like, does he must actually believe that it's just going to be easy. He has that like concrete self-belief. And I think that that's a really, really valuable trait, especially in a combat sport. When you just know you're better than everyone, a lot of the time it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you hear guys like him and Gordon talk about how they're going to win. And these are guys that truly care how they win. If they don't get a submission, they're not happy with themselves, right? So I think we're going to see Nicholas Marigali. He's just evolving so much. His jiu-jitsu pedigree is so good. He's so high level that I think it's going to be really hard to stop him. Plus, he's already destroyed Kynan Duarte. I guess that was at, is it Duarte or Duarte? I've heard both. I guess Brazilians would say Duarte maybe, but us gringos say Duarte. I think it's going to be hard for Kynan to beat Nicholas. It'll probably be more competitive than the last fight they had, because Nicholas handled him and put him away pretty quickly. But, we could see a more competitive match from Kynan this time for sure. Being a guard puller by trade, it's so cool watching Nicholas Marigali adopt takedowns. And the takedowns he uses are like body lock, judo throw style takedowns. And he's just done an incredible job using these throws against, like, we can honestly say, the best guys in the world now. It's funny how you watch a guy like Kynan fight Craig Jones, and when Kynan can be on top and he can kind of like bully his opponent, he looks incredible. He looks so dominant. But when he got put on his back, when Miragali put him on his back, he really didn't like to be there. And that could be, again, another path for victory for Miragali, is get Kynan on the bottom. And it sounds like, it appears that Nicholas Miragali has no intention of pulling guard anymore. He's now a judo fighter / takedown specialist, and I think we're going to see him just dominate his opponents from the top position. So we'll see if he can bully Kynan again, get him on the floor, and he's claiming he's going to armbar him, which is incredible. Yeah, I can't even go to a local tournament and say I'm going to beat somebody by armbar, but this guy's doing it to the best guys in the world. Absolutely fucking crazy. And another guy that I think is, he could end up on the podium for sure. I don't see him winning the division, but Cyborg Abreu, a legend in the sport. And, one of again, just like Wagner, and both from the same lineage. Wagner is a student of Cyborg's. Both guys, one of the more aged, or I guess the more kinder thing to say would be experienced fighters in the division. So it'll be interesting to see how Cyborg competes this time after losing at the last ADCC pretty quickly. I think he lost to Nicky Rod. Was that a decision? I think that was the last ADCC, unless I'm mistaken. Maybe that was the one before. Anyways, I'm just so excited that ADCC is happening this week. It's like the Super Bowl for me, except I don't watch football. All right, let's talk about the over 99 kilogram division. So the main guys that came out in my mind, I think most of the best athletes have moved over to CJI, but the biggest names that I can come to see is winning this thing is Felipe Pena, Big Dan, Vinny Magalesh, who's a legend, MMA fighter, ex-MMA fighter, and ADCC veteran multiple times. He's also one of the more experienced athletes in this division, in this tournament. And then Luke Griffith. Now, Luke Griffith he either looks incredible or he looks ice cold. And it's interesting to see that what version of Luke Griffith are we going to get on fight day. He could very well go far in this tournament for sure, but I think Pena is going to be too good for these guys. Big Dan, again, sometimes he looks incredibly dominant, and then other times, he ends up on the receiving end. We saw him lose, I guess it was at the what's that? I almost called it Mexican ground karate. It was at the Karate Combat Championship. He grappled Max Jimenez. Max Jimenez is a fucking beast. He's competing at CJI as well. More on him in a second. And when we saw Big Dan versus Max Jimenez, Max was able to handle him, right? So who knows what version of these fighters we're going to see. I think betting on Pena is probably a pretty safe bet. All right, let's talk about the ladies. So under 55 kilogram division, my main picks are Bianca Basilio. Of course, Bianca's a legend in Jiu Jitsu. Multiple time world champion, ADCC world champion. She's my pick to win the whole division. And then Mesa Bastos. This is a girl from AOJ. Again, I think she's a 9-time gi and no gi world champion. She's incredible in the gi and without the gi. It'll be interesting to see though how she competes under this rule set, because wrestling plays such a big factor. I believe she favors the guard pull. And the other girls that I have picked to win this division would be Jasmine Hosha, who just won East Coast Trials not too long ago, the daughter of Wagner Hosha, and also Achilles Hosha is also in the tournament as well. So Wagner, again, competing alongside his two children. How fucking cool is that? And then Alex Enriquez, who is, she also won East Coast Trials. Alex is incredible, very, very slick fighter, scrappy, good at all positions. Are these young ladies going to be able to come in and take out the legend Bianca Basilio? I don't know. I think my money's on Bianca. Okay, under 65 kilogram division. This is a pretty sweet division, honestly. The Helena Cravar, this girl's 16, 17, and definitely operating at a black belt level, just tuning black belts. We all know who Helena Cravar is. And I remember seeing her in person recently and being like, holy fuck, this chick is big. She is She's probably like 5'9" and just broad across the chest. Very, very strong, big shoulders, like, and just incredible technique, leg locks, closed guard, very, very powerful from all positions. The only thing that costs her is perhaps her wrestling abilities. We haven't really seen her takedowns abilities. And when I watched her at East Coast Trials, she got silver because she pulled guard in overtime. I never really understood that, or not in overtime, in the finals. I never understood why an athlete would pull guard in the finals as opposed to just letting their opponent take them down. And she could have avoided the score by letting her opponent take her down. Instead, she chooses to pull guard. So, I think this time she'll be more tactical. I'm sure working with, Danaher and Gordon, she's probably adjusted her game for this. This is the big show now, right? This isn't just trials. This is the big show. And, it'll be interesting to see how she adjusts her game plan, especially not being a wrestler, how she will handle the rule set of ADCC, but definitely expect her to go far in this tournament. Probably she's going to probably win the division, I would imagine. And then Bia Mesquita. So Bia Mesquita, she holds the record for the most IBJJF black belt world titles. That's a fucking crazy stat. I can't remember what it was. I think between Gi and Nogi, it's over 20. Like, it's a crazy record. Bia Mesquita is a legend. She is, I would not be surprised if she could win this. But again, Helena is, I think, working with more current technology. She's younger. That definitely goes into effect. Plus, her training partners and coaches are just the best in the world. And then my last pick would be Brianna St. Marie, fellow Canadian Brianna St. Marie. She won ADCC silver in the last ADCCs. She's also an IBJJF no-gi world champion. Brianna St. Marie can win on any day as well. She's very, very skilled, very tough. And I don't know if she's going to be able to beat Bia or Helena, but she's definitely going to have some competitive matches at this tournament. Over 65 kilogram division, the reigning ADCC champ, Amy Campo, that's my pick. Amy Campo's incredible. Other names in the division, Rafaela Guides from Atos. She's a multiple-time no-gi world champion at black belt, and she's a fucking beast. And the thing about these girls, the girls' divisions, is over 65 kilograms. Like, you could have, a girl who's at 65 kilograms, and then you could also have Gabby Garcia, right? So the weight classes, it's almost like a ladies absolute in a way. And I think Amy Campo has this, but Guides is a fucking beast from Atos under the legend Andre Galvao. I could see her winning this tournament as well. And then my third pick is Nathalie de Jesus. Great name. Very Brazilian. I think she also goes by the name Nafi. And she is an IBJJF world champ from the Soul Fighters camp. So again, pick is Amy Campo and also Rafaela Guides. All right, let's talk super fights. So we have Gordon versus Yuri and Gordon versus Pena. Now, I listened to Craig Jones. I can't remember which podcast he was on. He's been on so many podcasts lately. Like, he was just on Jocko. He had Stuart Cooper on his show, and he also was on More Plates, More Dates. I recommend you check out all these episodes. They're all a lot of fun. Love listening to Craig. He's very funny, right? And typical like Aussie construction site worker type comedy, and that's a sense of humor. It's super fun. And he was kind of shitting on like, well, these guys are gonna all, Gordon's got all these super fights, and we're gonna count these super fights as ADCC gold medals, which he kind of, I guess, the whole thing about like winning the super fight and then calling that like you're an ADCC gold medalist. Like, to me, I've never really agreed with that. Like, yeah, you won the super fight, you beat the absolute title winner of the last ADCC, but like, you didn't go through the division. You know what I mean? So for me, it's almost like Mo Jassim is just like finding a way to pad Gordon's stats. Again, I've mentioned on this show that Gordon could potentially have an early retirement. And I've heard through the grapevine that this camp has been, not fun for him. Like, just, it sounds like his health is like declining with the gut issues. I've had gut issues before. It can be absolutely devastating, especially when you're trying to compete at that level and train for the highest level. It can't be easy for Gordon with his health issues. And I've mentioned it before. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't compete for too much longer and he kind of passes the torch to Mirigali And assuming Muragali wins the absolute, that would be my pick, would be Nicholas Muragali. Like, is he going to fight Gordon? I just don't see that match happening. I see Gordon sort of stepping aside and Muragali becoming the new king, and Gordon just taking on like a kind of being happy with retiring, accomplishing everything that he needed to accomplish before he could retire. And now he's just going to focus on like coaching and things like that. So who knows what we're going to see? I'm pretty sure this is not a hot take. I think everyone thinks that Gordon's going to beat Yuri and he's going to beat Pena, especially after Gordon's last performance against Pena, where Pena, literally quit. Yes, it was after the Leandro Lo death. That was devastating, and fighting someone, right after your best friend dies can't be the easiest thing ever. But we did literally see Pena quit after 40 minutes of fighting against Gordon. I know it's a different rule set, but I just don't see how Pena beats. I just don't see how he beats Gordon anymore. It's just, Gordon lost to Pena twice because he was going for leg entanglements, and Pena hit a really slick back take and on both occasions. And we just don't even see Gordon go for legs much anymore. Only when it strategically makes sense to, when he's going against someone much bigger than him, or when he has multiple fights and he needs to get through fights quickly, that's when he will go through and he feels like he has an advantage over his opponents with leg locks. That's when he goes to the legs. But other than that, like, he's going to try and melt Pena. Pena has his own division to worry about. Gordon's not doing his division this year. He's only fighting Yuri and Pena. So he doesn't have to worry about having a ton of matches before he meets Pena on day 2 of ADCC. So I don't see how Pena wins this match. I see Gordon really taking it to Pena, putting him down, getting on top and camping on him and just demolishing him. Yuri, I would say Yuri's probably got better wrestling for jiu-jitsu than Pena. I think Yuri, again, doesn't really have much of a chance beating Gordon. He's not going to submit him. Like, there's no way he can submit him. I don't think there's any way he could pin him or control him. It's kind of like an Andre Galvao versus Gordon situation, where Yuri would literally need to play the perfect disciplined game to beat Gordon, and I just don't see how that happens. So I expect Gordon to beat both those guys by submission, honestly. Probably by rear naked strangle in both situations. That would be my guess. Okay, switching gears to CJI here. So now we're going to talk about CJI. So before we talk about the brackets, let's just recap like quickly the rules. And again, I'm not an expert on it, but it's in the pit, right? They call it the alley. One of the coolest grappling areas that I've ever seen. Pretty fucking sick. Now, it's an interesting rule set. It's a 10-point must system. So that's basically what MMA is like, right? In MMA, they have a 10-point must system. So at the end of there's going to be 3 rounds in the fight, 3 5-minute rounds. And at the end of every round, there's a 1-minute break, just like in MMA. And the judges will give 10 points to the winner of the round, and 9 points if it's a closer round, or 8 points to the other person if they got dominated that round. So very much scored just like MMA. And I think the scoring is going to be open. I could be wrong. So like maybe the fighters know what the scoring is after the round. Not too sure. It's a very interesting rule set for jiu-jitsu. I had a lot of people talking to me about asking my opinion on it and saying like, man, like people are going to let their shit break because $1 million is on the line. So like, you're going to see a lot of guys that are willing to like eat submissions to win, to win their division. But you could also look at it the other way. You could look at it like, man, we could see some boring rounds. Like, what if you're ahead on the round and you're ahead and you just hang on for the last minute or two and just, edge out the round and win the round? Like, we're probably going to see a lot of that because guys might be willing to take pops and take damage to win the division, but I'm pretty sure guys are willing to stall and have boring rounds just to win the division as well. So I think it could be kind of a catch-22 where we see that, because what would you do to win $1 million, right? Would you have a boring match? Probably, if you had to, if that's what it took to win. That might be something that is necessary. So for the under 80 kilogram division's crazy. It's stacked. I have Andrew Tackett winning. We just saw him dominate Tommy Langaker at Who's Number One, like dominated him, pass his guard, take his back, strangle him, and Andrew Tackett's a beast, but he's also got Ty Rotolo and Cade and Joseph Chen in that division. These guys, so Andrew, Ty, Cade, and Joseph, if I'm not mistaken, are situated on the opposite sides of the bracket and on the other side of the bracket. So they're in the four corners of the bracket. Man, how can you pick out of those four guys? It's absolutely crazy. We just saw Joseph Chan have a fight with Ty Rotolo, and he lost a very close match at 1FC, a decision. So Joseph is incredibly skilled, but Ty and Cade both have that that X factor. Like they can just pull submissions out of nowhere. They're so unpredictable and very athletic, very strong. Man, I think Andrew's going to win this division, but I could absolutely see Ty also winning. And then, this guy shouldn't be a dark horse, but for me, he's my dark horse, and that's Lucas Hulk Barboza, who's, again, like a legend in the sport. I'm pretty sure he's gi and no gi world champion. I'm not sure if he's won ADCC, but has he won ADCC? Don't think he has. But he is a fucking animal, and he's actually coming in the under 80 kilogram division when he has kind of a history of being a heavier athlete, right? At least heavyweight or a super heavyweight athlete. I think he normally competes at an IBJJF. So seeing him at the lower weight classes will be very, very interesting. Again, he's not normally a guy, well, he gets submissions in competition as well, but he's really, really good at tactically winning matches. So we'll see how, when you throw him into the mix, there's a who's who of guys in that division, but those are my picks. All right, over 80 kilograms. So again, we're seeing a lot of guys that should probably be in ADCC. The main ones that I noticed were Nicky Rod and Victor Hugo. And I think those are going to be the two guys in the finals. I think that most people are predicting those two guys to meet in the finals. Nicky Rod does have to get through Max Jimenez in the first round. And Max Jimenez is a fucking unit, as I said earlier. That's actually a very interesting match. But I think Nicky Rod's going to be able to get through him. And then Victor Hugo, I think, is definitely going to get to the finals. On the same side of the bracket as Victor Hugo is William Tackett. And that's going to be interesting. His first round is against João Gabriel Rocha, who's probably one of the bigger guys in the division. So that's an interesting match too. Again, these are under 80 kilogram and over 80 kilogram. It's almost like over 80 kilogram is like an absolute division. Like William Tackett is much smaller than João Gabriel Rocha. But I think William Tackett, he's younger and he's going to be more agile. He's going to be quicker, and he's arguably more up to date, I would say, with some of the current meta in jiu-jitsu, leg locks and things like that. So I actually think William Tackett will beat João Gabriel Rocha. I just don't think he's going to be able to beat a guy like Victor Hugo. But again, I think Nicky Rod versus Victor Hugo probably going to be in the finals, and I think Victor is going to win. Okay, let's talk about their super fights. Fionn Davies versus Mackenzie Dern. I think Fionn is too dialed in with current jiu-jitsu right now. Mackenzie just won a fight against a friend of mine, Lupita. I think it's Lupita Gonzalez. She's not a close friend of mine. I used to train with her. She does live in Vancouver most of the time out of the year, and then she travels down to Mexico where she has her fight camps. But I think it's going to be tough for Mackenzie to beat Fionn, even though Mackenzie, I believe she's an ADCC champion and she is a legend of female grappling. That is for sure. Like I said, she just won her match against Lupita last week. But man, Fionn Davies is so dialed in. Of course, she's won ADCC before. She's a world champion, and I think she's going to be able to beat Mackenzie. And then you have, of course, what everybody came to see, and that's Craig Jones versus Gabby Garcia. Every time Craig's on a podcast and they ask him about, like, are you taking this match seriously? Like, what kind of preparation are you doing for this match? Even on More Plates, More Dates, they're talking about juice and getting on steroids, and like pretty much the whole episode's about steroids. And they're asking Craig, like, what kind of, what was Derek asking him? Like, what's your stack for this? What are you taking in preparation for this? And Craig's like, oh, I'm going to get I'm going to take a couple Cialis to get the job done. Like, everything with him is either a gay joke or a sex joke with Gabby Garcia. Fucking hilarious. I mean, it's, again, all of my picks are pretty predictable, right? So you probably didn't gain much from listening to my predictions, honestly, but I think Craig is going to beat Gabby. Craig is one of the best fighters in the world. Even though Gabby definitely has a size advantage on him, I think it's going to be hard for Gabby to beat Craig. Like, how is she going to pass his guard? How is she going to submit him? It's just not, I just don't see it happening. But who knows? Like, I could see Craig going out there and like joking around and like throw the match even. Like, we just don't know what to expect. And it's fun. It's fun to watch that. It's all just fun. I really don't know if he's going to like play with her, or if he's going to let her do things, or if he's going to try and submit her right away, or maybe she gives him some real trouble. Like, and who knows? If you've watched some of the banter back and forth between the two of them, it's obvious that they're, kind of keeping the fight friendly, and it's more of like an exhibition match. So I wanted to see that match years ago. I remember tuning into the stream, and then it never fucking happened. So I was disappointed when that happened, but who knows what we're going to see at CJI. It'll definitely be a very interesting event, the first of its kind in grappling. It's going to be history. And I had a previous episode with Ben Dyson. We're talking about, is CJI good for the athletes? Is it bad for the sport? What is it? And you know what? It's done a lot in terms of getting athletes paid, getting women paid. So I think it has sort of served its purpose that it was intended from Craig when he set out to start this tournament. And man, there's going to be so many eyes on CJI. The athletes that are in that tournament are top notch. Most of them should be in ADCC. And man, it's going to be sweet. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see that grappling surface and how that plays a role with the athletes. It's going to be interesting. And also the rule set. Very interesting to see how the tournament plays out under that rule set. All right, guys, that's all that I have today for you. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment where you can. Leave a review where you can. It really, really helps me. If you want to support the show, check out the links in the bottom. Check out my online academy. Other than that, take care, guys. The Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Peace.